Namaste, everyone. My name is Vishwanath, and I welcome you to another session on Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Today, we will research chapter 3, verse 30 to 32. Renouncing all action into me with a consciousness that is meditating on the primordial self, without hope, without the sense of self, becoming free of affliction, fight. Also, those people that practice this teaching of mine constantly with dedication and without envy, they are freed from karma. But those who are envious, performing my teaching, interpreting all knowledge of the self, their lack of knowledge will lead them to ruin.
So one thing is obvious, this is for Kshatriyas. But fighting also means how you react to change. Change is continuous. Chapter 1 is that change is continuous. Chapter 2 is the understanding that change is impermanent and transient. What he is saying here is that there's no point in worrying about change. Do what you need to do. Stop worrying about what will happen. So here, what he's saying is, renounce all action unto me with a consciousness that is meditating on the primordial self. The primordial self here is the Brahman. So the infinite void that is the Brahman. See, Brahman is all here. Everything here is Brahman. We are unable to cognize it. Why? Because we are constantly trying to reinforce our sense of self. So we need these anchors. I need all these anchors, this paraphernalia, in order to say Vishwanath exists. If I can get rid of all of this, then I am part of the primordial self. I merge into the primordial self. That primordial self, he says, if you can cognize that primordial self and perform your action, in that case, what will happen? Purusha does not exist, only Prakriti exists. That is, the river is flowing, Brahman is flowing, but there is no impediment to the movement of action. Okay, so this is a very critical thing that if you are, if you renounce all the actions into Sri Krishna, what happens? When you renounce your action into Sri Krishna, Vishwanath is no longer the doer, it is Sri Krishna. So when there is no Purusha, when Purusha becomes the zero, what happens? Purusha becomes zero, there is still action happening. Everything is happening over here, right? There is a water bottle, there is a mouse, there is the all kinds of things are happening. But what? There is no Vishwanath here. When Vishwanath ceases to exist, even though others the flow of nature will happen, there is a flow of nature. Vishwanath does not exist because Vishwanath is continuously immersed in the Brahman, which is the cognitive state of infinite void. What we can say, the cognitive state of null. Also, those people that practice this teaching of mind constantly with dedication and without envy, they are freed from karma. Now, let's again get back into. Now, here we have to understand karma a little more. Karma means what? So, as I said, I manifest and I tell you all something. If you agree with me, you will pull my ideas closer and in return me closer, even though it may be only across a medium. So you become closer. So, or if you disagree, you will push my ideas or me away. This action of pulling closer and pushing away is karma. Now, if you look at verse 30, he is saying that if you renounce all action to me, Purusha becomes zero. That's what he said here. Without sense of self. Self is what? Is Purusha. Your Purusha. If that Purusha does not exist, then when karma happens, you like or you dislike. When you like me, you bring me closer. When you dislike me, you push me further away. That is karma. There is a transaction as a result. When the transaction happens, there is a give and a take. You give me feedback, I give you information. I'm not calling it knowledge because knowledge is only will only happen when you transform it into something that is of value to you. So right now, what I'm giving you is only information. I'm giving you information. I'm sharing my information with you. When I share my information with you, either you like or dislike it. On what basis are you liking or disliking it? That data is coming into your system. You're comparing it with your dharma, your asmita, and then you say I like or dislike it. So that means there is a personal like or dislike that is happening. Because of that, you if you dislike me, you will push me away. And when that transaction happens, a debit and a credit is created. Any transaction, a debit and a credit is created. Now that debit and credit, as we all know, in any form of material transaction, there is no free lunch on earth. If you take something, you have to give back. So when you get into that kind of a situation, you create a debt or a debit or a credit. A debt is created. It's called Renanu Bandhana. A bond of debt is created. And that debt has to be neutralized. Now, who is owning that debt? That debt is owned by the individual. Who is that individual? The Purusha. So that means the Purusha holds the debt until it is reconciled. Which is why, if you are unable to reconcile it in this birth, you have to take another birth in order to reconcile the debt. That is the first part. How else can we remove the debt, reconcile the debt? We all know that if you take credits from a bank, credits from a bank, you owe the bank. But the minute you die, who owns the debt? The bank, if the bank might take your assets and things like that. But if you don't have any assets and you have a credit card debit, it's a bad debt. That is what it means. If you die or if the individual dies, the debt dies with that person. Similarly, if the Purusha dies, if there is no Purusha, there is no assignment of debt. This is a very important thing, that this discrimination between the Purusha not existing but working but acting is a very important thing, because that is where karma becomes nullified. That means when the Purusha does not exist, that means the river is flowing, but the Purusha is not impeding the flow of river. The Purusha is not getting biofeedback. The biofeedback is neutralized. There is nobody there. Then what happens? In that state, there is nobody to assign the karma to. You can't assign the karma to anybody. That means there is no debt created on that Purusha. When that happens, there is no debt, there is no karma. And that is what he is trying to say here. Those people that practice this teaching of mind with dedication and without envy. Why do we need envy? Envy means what? You're comparing with somebody else. You are creating a karma. They are free from karma. But those who are envious and not performing my teaching, misinterpreting all knowledge of the self, their knowledge will ultimately lead them to ruin. Because why? Because at the end of the day, if you do not do this with an understanding that I mean, there's nothing. I mean, there is this whole business of Purusha is a manifestation of insecurity, and if you cannot bring that Purusha to zero, you will be acting always in the realm of Maya, that I like, I dislike, I am good, I am bad kind of thing.
If you say that unless the other person uh, proves that you are there or something. The person's asmita will. But at the same time, when you say that you don't have to, you have to surrender everything, you don't have to have anything. You say that you are not the doer, then that need not happen, right?
Correct. So what happens is we can't get to that point where we don't have asmita.
You reduce it.
So no, the issue here is very simple, sir. When we the first thing is the experience of the self. That is prajna, the prajna of the self. I am alive. Then afterwards, the manifestation of the self into the ecosphere. That is using the chitta. So we need to differentiate between this. The awareness of the self is prajna. The consciousness which moves. Each of these have a particular way of talking to me. That way that they talk to me is through their consciousness. This entire physical thing is a consciousness. It's material. I'm not disputing that. But that material is talking to me through the consciousness, the chitta. It may be jadam, that is different. It may be the sense, it does not have a sensory capability. It's not sentient. So that particular thing is accepted. So, but the thing is that it is emanating a consciousness, and technically it is capable of merging with the Brahman. But here the problem is different. When you are saying that when we first start, we start with insecurity, and we go committing those karmas and creating those debts. So we get into the cycle of birth and life. Thereafter, at one point, we realize that this whole thing is illusionary. Then the question is how to get out of this chakravyuh, how to get out of this rut of making and I mean building and dying, rebuilding. There must be some way out. Now the thing is that here the question always is, who is the doer, and why is the doer doing? The minute you realize that I am the doer, but I think I am the doer. If I did without having the experience of having doer, what is the difference? What does the doer do? The doer does and expects feedback.
Yes.
He wants feedback, and he wants feedback that he's a good boy. So Vishwanath gets feedback that he's a good guy, and that is basically the problem with Vishwanath, that he needs that feedback. He wants more people to come to class. Why? Why should anybody come to this class? What is so great? So, for as long as that need for fulfillment, the need for support, the need for reinforcement exists, Vishwanath's identity is still weak. It is still needing that propping of another person's, massage.
If a person doesn't do anything,
Mhm.
there's no question of getting a feedback or doing something. So he's happier, I don't think. No action at all.
The issue here is that means you are sitting quietly in your own sense of self,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. Not
But
doing
that
anything. Not
not doing anything, not doing anything.
not
But
expecting
where
it.
okay, but the point is, where is your awareness? That is what is important. Because if your awareness is not moving, it is static, it is not going anywhere, then there is no Purusha.
No bullshit.
If your consciousness is not moving, if the awareness is, if you don't need to move out, and if you don't need these props, these anchors to tell you that you are alive or you are good or you are bad, then you are in good shape. Then you don't need any fulfillment at all. You are secure within the self. But how many, other than a handful of people, I don't know anybody who is in that state. Who was today also? I don't even know anybody in today's world who is in that state. Other than those days, Ramana Maharishi, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Saraswati and Saraswati, I don't know of anybody in modern 19th, 20th century people who have been in that state.
But not doing anything is also not a virtue.
Not doing anything is a starting point. is a starting point. At least physically, Annamaya Kosha, your physical movement is reduced. When you reduce the Annamaya Kosha, then the next step is Pranamaya Kosha. When you're sitting quietly, the prana starts equalizing. It stops trying to go left, right, here, there, and all that. There is no disturbance. The turbulence goes down. Pranamaya Kosha begins to regulate prana within the self. Then Manomaya Kosha, the chitta within the brain starts settling down. It starts becoming quiet. And in that quietude, your need for reinforcement from the external environment, the
Reduces.
Vijnanamaya Kosha, begins to reduce. And when you all of that comes to the state of null, you merge with the Brahman. It's theoretically it is very simple. The problem is your sense of self is so fragile, it will keep on asking you to get some kind of reinforcement.
Okay.
Let us recap verses 31 to 33. What is karma? When we meet someone, we either like or dislike them. When we like someone, we bring them closer. This is called raga, which means attraction in Sanskrit. When we dislike someone, we push them away. This is called dvesha in Sanskrit, which means repulsion. Both raga and dvesha result in a movement. In raga, the person comes closer. In dvesha, the person pushes the other person away. But this movement is called karma in Sanskrit, which means action or work. So, as I have said before, the movement karma creates a transaction between two entities. This entity results in a give and take between them. This transaction is never balanced. Some give more, some take more. This imbalance is called runa or rana in Sanskrit, which means debt. This debt is held by the soul or Atma. What are the different types of karma? Karma that impacts everyone, such as weather, disaster, COVID, etc., is called samasti karma or generic karma or universal karma. We are continuously making karma or incurring karma, and this that we are incurring now, that is being created now, is called agami karma or current karma. All this debt goes into an overall accumulated debt called sanchiti karma, or sorry, sanchita karma. And the karma that is coming for repayment is called prarabdha karma. The bond which is created by karma is called rananubandhana, a bond of debt. And this bond exists for as long as the debt is paid off, even if it means taking another birth. So, how can you exit this state? So, let us just look at the overall mechanics. When Purusha becomes zero, there is no debt. So, in the case of us humans, we have a sentient interface with the environment, which results in an experience, and this is driven by the overall internal motivations or causation that we have within us. The awareness of the existence of our own Purusha or individuality or identity is called prajna, and that manifests as the awareness of the movement of chitta or consciousness. Movement of the chitta, the chitta is a messenger or a carrier of experience of the identity. The sense organs bring all the information into our cognitive state center, which then uses that information, and the buddhi makes sure that the information is checked for congruence with our conditioning or dharma or natural state. Dharma or natural state of conditioning is that which determines our natural behavior, how we behave, what is our natural state or swabhava. Our awareness of the external environment is called vijnana, and the awareness of the movement of chitta within the self is called jnana. All of this is basically an understanding or the dynamics which is driven by the relationship between Purusha and Prakriti, which is then driven by the gunas. Once the stimulus comes in through our sense organs, is collated by the manas and compared by the buddhi, it then goes the sense of self-worth then takes part or makes the experience personal, and then the experience of being the doer or ahankara then manifests as an outcome or a response. Thank you very much for watching this video. Do like, share, and subscribe. And for more information, please do visit my website www.schoolofyoga.in.